We lost our way. One was ill-conceived nationalization, which stunted this industrial growth. We could have, done what China did. They created wealth, and then they used the wealth to lift the bottom tier of the population. But just because the rich got richer, it didn't mean that we should have stopped, this industrialization by nationalization. We should have just had a more equitable growth.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Prime Minister Khan, it's a great pleasure to welcome you to the annual meeting, our 50th anniversary, for the very first time in your capacity as your country's Prime Minister, even if it's not your first time with us in Davos as a political leader. I had the pleasure and privilege of visiting Islamabad last summer and meeting you when you were less than 1 year into your mandate as Prime Minister. Pakistan had just agreed on a bailout with the IMF, and the country's economy was at a turning point. Despite spiraling challenges on the economic and geopolitical front, you maintained the vision you had outlined in your successful election campaign, a new Pakistan with an economy, institutions, and leadership that work for all of the country. Today, 6 months later, I believe you have a powerful story to tell the world, one in which a country in crisis has been able to pursue one of the most ambitious programs of social, economic, and institutional transformation I have witnessed. Instead of using the economic crisis to justify cutbacks, you used it to change the way the state collects taxes, the way it shelters its poor and invests in its youth and the environment, and to set new standards of integrity in public lives. Pakistan's ability to emerge from hardship stronger than before is the testament to the remarkable resilience of its peoples. Based on this, it is my great honor, Mr. Prime Minister, to welcome you here to the lectern. Thank you.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank the World Economic Forum for providing me this opportunity to speak to world leaders, business leaders, media people, to give the Pakistan perspective to the world. So I want to thank you specifically for that. Let me just start by saying that I am almost as old as Pakistan. Pakistan was only 5 years older than me. So I grew up with the country. And the country I grew up was supposed to be a welfare state. The founding fathers of our country wanted Pakistan to be what was called an Islamic welfare state. And as I grew up, I had no idea what a welfare state was. So it was when as a teenager I went to England. That's when I first discovered what a welfare state is. It's humanity, it's caring about the underprivileged. And so from then onwards, I always thought that if I ever got the opportunity, I would always want my country to be a welfare state. So this is my vision. Everything, all the policies which we make in Pakistan are towards that end, to make it into a humane country where the government takes responsibility of the weaker section of its society. So this is the vision statement. But I'll start with environment, because the theme of this time, the World Economic Forum, is about sustainability. Let me just say, first of all, that the other thing about Pakistan, was this desire to see it as a humane and a just society. But the other thing was as a child, I fell in love with the wilderness of Pakistan, the mountains of Pakistan. All our summer holidays were spent in the Himalayas. And so from that time onwards, what I loved about Pakistan was its wilderness, its mountains. And so, as with age, I saw these mountains, this wilderness disappearing. And especially the way we destroyed our forest cover. I always resolved the second thing, that if I ever got the opportunity, I would make sure that we preserve this God-given beauty of our country. And we start a reforestation campaign. So in 2013, my party won an election in one of the provinces, which was the former northwestern western province called Pakhtunkhwa. And that's when we started one of the most ambitious campaigns to plant 1 billion trees in 4 years. And against all odds, we did it. No one expected it to happen, but we involved the local communities. We first made them understand how important trees were for the future. We made the people understand that Pakistan was very vulnerable to climate change. And we appealed to the people. We involved women in the mountainous areas to grow nurseries. And it became one of the most successful campaigns in our country's history of forestation. So we planted 1 billion trees. So when I became the Prime Minister, I resolved that we would plant 10 billion trees in Pakistan in the next 4 years. And this is now our objective. The experience we learned from the KP province, we are now using that experience to grow these nurseries, involve local communities, especially involve women, because they were very good in planting, developing and planting nurseries. So, why is it important for us to grow trees? For 2 reasons. One, as I mentioned, that Pakistan is vulnerable to global warming. Secondly, in our cities, pollution has become a silent killer. So unfortunately, there was no plan before, and our cities got very polluted, specifically Lahore, which had the pollution levels like Delhi in India, rose high because for some reason, our planners removed 70% of the tree cover of Lahore in the last 10 years. Apart from the environmental aspect now, the third thing I realized, that you cannot make your economy grow unless and until there is peace and stability. Pakistan in the 80s became part of what was the Afghan Jihad. Pakistan became allied with the US to fight for the freedom in Afghanistan from the Soviets. We had militant groups in Pakistan trained to do guerrilla activities in Afghanistan. Once that ended, once the Soviets left, we were left with the militant groups, and Pakistan suffered the consequences. First time ever we had militant groups in Pakistan. We had sectarian groups. We had this called the Kalashnikov culture. We had drugs coming into the country. And that was a watershed in Pakistan. Things started going wrong and as I repeat, for economy, you need stability. You need peace and order. So if you have armed militias in your country, that became one of the impediments on economic growth. Come 9/11, we again joined the US in its war on terror. This time, the same militant groups that were created, Pakistan was required to disarm them. So again, we went through this process. 70,000 Pakistanis died in it. And of